Welcome to the Gold Standard from the 440 Sports Network and, of course, lowerbroadhockey.com. My name is Braden Gall. You can get to me on the internet at Braden Gall.
And I'm Emma Lingan. You can get to me at Emma_Lingan.
We've got some news to get to. We got a little announcement here for you guys. Very excited about some stuff that's going to be happening with Lower Broad Hockey. So we'll tell you about that in just a second momentarily. However, we've got like actual progress to discuss. Emma, question mark?
Yeah, no question mark. I think it's progress.
Oh, it's legitimately, officially, factually progress. So we will discuss that. Of course, if you want to get into the comments, please do so. There is a potential trade that's been lingering around the internet that may or may not be a thing that could happen for the Nashville Predators. So we'll get into that, of course. The one thing, Barry Trotz is catching a lot of heat these days, and you can't. I don't know about you, Emma. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed that a lot of folks, especially of my demographic, middle-aged adult white male, don't know how to use the word strays. Like Barry Trotz can't catch strays. He's you're shooting at Barry Trotz.
Oh, yeah, no, if you're the target, you're not catching strays. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of older folk like in my demographic that are like, oh, Barry Trotz catching a lot of strays from the fans these days. I'm like, no, they're shooting at him.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works.
That's what I thought. Look, I am senior young person correspondent to the middle-aged dad bracket in Tennessee. So we will discuss, I think, the one thing that if I'm Barry Trotz, I am sort of very excited about, and I think it was on full display on Tuesday night in Nashville. You were at the game, so we'll discuss that. We'll get into that as well. And defense. We're going to talk about defense as Adam Wilsby scored his first goal, a sick dangle at the blue line, and then, of course, just a total snipe, as C-Mace likes to say. So we'll get to that. You'll hear from Luke Shen, who I believe had 6 shots in 3 seconds.
Sure did.
So you were in the locker room afterward, and we'll hear from Adam Wilsby and Luke Shen, some defense on the show today. First of all, we are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Sinkers Beverages, of course, liquor store of the year for 4 straight years, as voted on by the Nashville Scene, the Nashville Post, and you, the Nashville user. So make sure you check out Sinkers Beverages as well as Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, open on Wednesdays, from Wednesdays to Sundays, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Make sure you check out the best brisket in the city of Nashville when you're in town. It's a fantastic lunch meeting spot, fantastic place to visit, right there in Madison, but it's just off Briley Parkway, super accessible by basically any part of the city, no matter where you are. The interstate system, great. So there you go. Check that out. I know you guys are already in the comments. Good to see you, Josh and Ben. Victory Wednesday, that is true. And 2 out of 3 for the Nashville Predators as well. So before we get to any of that, Emma, quickly some news here for lowerbroadhockey.com. Obviously, Michael's taking some time to make sure he's doing all the things that he needs to do for himself and for the family. And as soon as sort of he and I started talking about this, I started thinking we started planning around bringing on another writer because, we can't just do it all ourselves. So excited to have Nick Keyser from 1025 The Game come on to write with us and to produce some content for you all. From a writing standpoint, and I think we should have something up later today on Wednesday this week. So just stay tuned for that. Very excited to have Nick, who's down there all the time. He's at practice all the time, and big hockey nerd, and excited to have his writing on the website. So make sure you tell everybody Nick Keyser's joining Lower Broad Hockey. It's big press release, big news at Lower Broad Hockey. So excited to have him. No, he's insightful, hardworking. I appreciate him, and so excited to have him writing for the squad coming up on the website. Go subscribe, lowerbroadhockey.com. So Andrew says, that's awesome. There you go. All right. Emma, are you willing to say, you've already said it, so I guess you are, progress is actually happening for the Nashville Predators. We said Andrew Burnett told us last week it was, that he started making some tweaks about 10 games ago. They then had a really awful stretch of hockey in terms of losses and points. They lost a bunch of players to injury. You guys all know the drill. But he started to see a little bit of progress. They played well against Calgary in defeat. They absolutely totally dominated Dallas. Then they lose to Colorado in fairly ugly fashion, which looked a lot like the same old Preds. And then they come back. And while the Rangers are limping along, totally defense with all the young players, shut them down. We'll get to the defense in a second. So you're on board. This is real. This is better hockey is coming for Nashville Predators fans, for better or for worse.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, this is what I have to stick to what I said before, which is that I needed to see consistent, like a string of, consecutive, really strong performances from this team. And even though the game before the Rangers against Colorado was not a win, that was a strong performance. I mean, if they play like that, they are going to keep winning games. And so, again, you're going to run into a hot goalie. Mackenzie Blackwood had no business being that hot that night, but I mean, good for him. It's gonna happen. Um, Now I just think that, yeah, it's now been 3 games in a row, and I've been very, very impressed by just the play of the team as a whole, which is what we had been lacking. Was, this was a team that didn't look like it knew how to win games or wanted to win games. Now, even in the Colorado game, didn't end up being a win, but they looked like a team that knew how to win and was trying to. And so, I mean, they went into that, or early in that third period against Colorado, they were down 3-0, and then they scored 2 goals. And so that's the kind of thing that we had not seen from this team before. And, how many times earlier this year had we gone in 2-0 lead and then they blow it, lose 3-2? Like that, we're seeing a change in that at least. And so I think that that's all positive. I'm fully ready to say, yes, this is progress and good things are coming.
I can't believe I'll be the optimist here and say it's 4 games of better hockey, because I would include the Calgary game. Do you think they played better against Colorado or Calgary? Patrick says watching the game against Colorado was like watching the Preds play Arizona in the COVID playoffs. Clearly the better team for the whole series. Goalie could not be defeated. Calgary or Colorado, in your opinion?
Colorado, 100%.
Okay, all right. Certainly the level of competition and on the road. And, of course, Patrick says, do you see a correlation between the team's struggles, Bruno's high-energy effort system, and having one of the oldest rosters in the NHL? Patrick, I'm assuming you have not been listening to the show this season. But great to have you. We do appreciate you joining us. But, yes, absolutely. And I don't have time to rehash the 4,000 times we've mentioned the fact that Stamkos is old.
But Andrew Burnett did say after the game against the Rangers, and I quote, that Stamkos looks like a young pup out there. And you know what? He's got some speed to him.
He did last night, yeah.
And so I think that the whole old thing, it's like that you can use as an excuse for maybe why it took them so long to get to this point, because teaching an old dog new tricks, things like that. But I mean, once they get it, I don't think that you can lean on that as a crutch anymore. Be like, oh, they're old. Like,
no, I agree.
They're not playing like it.
You're either a professional hockey player or you're not, and you're a professional athlete. So,
right.
No, I agree. He did look much more spry and active around the goal in the game on Tuesday against the Rangers. There's no question about that. Some of that might be the fact that he's centering the top line, which is interesting, and also something worth discussing. I think the interesting part of this is, like, have they done them? And I don't know the answer to this, to be fair, because they did something extraordinary last year, 18 games, without a loss. I just don't know if it's too little too late. That like when we say like, hey, progress is happening, I agree with you. They have looked better on offense over the last, let's say, 3 weeks. It's starting to get results, at least in the last 4 games. But like, is that what fans want right now? Is a legitimate question. Like, obviously you want to win games, you want to have fun on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays, and like being a fan is about watching your team win games. I get that. And I'm not a person who believes in the NFL tanking thing. Like, if I'm a Titans fan, they're awful right now. Don't you want to see a win on a Sunday and have a good day versus pick 4th in the draft instead of 7th in the draft, where like that doesn't really change your franchise's future? I think the Preds having a chance at the number 1 overall pick is different than, what's the difference in picking 7th and 11th? Like that, I don't care about. I don't care about winning some games and trying to get into the playoffs and get to the point where you go from like bad to almost good. It's if you have a chance at number 1. Like if you have a chance at number 1, I understand. I'm not saying I agree with it, Emma, but I understand fans saying too little, too late. I don't want to see the progress. I want to see the sell-off, whatever that might mean, and I want a shot at number 1, which this franchise has never had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I get it. I don't agree with it, but I understand the argument there. I think that First of all, nothing is guaranteed because there's still the lottery. There's still the lottery that's going to determine the exact order of the pick. So even if the Preds were to finish dead last, there's still no guarantee that they get the number one pick. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, that nothing is guaranteed. But also, it's too soon for me. It's still way too soon to be like, yep, that's it. Start the sell-off. Like, yes, it's been a bad start. It's been a bad stretch of hockey. But this past offseason, Barry Trotz went out, got the pieces to help them win now. So they still need to try to win now. And so that's where I'm at on it. And again, they have 3 first-round picks next year. They have young pieces in the pipeline. They're going to get more. And we've talked about this before, that these older guys being on the roster does not block anyone. It doesn't, because none of these guys, it's not blocking guys in the pipeline from getting to the roster, because the Stamkoses and the Marchessaults are on relatively short-term deals. And so it's more of a stopgap, if anything else, to, kind of not just buy time, but, let these young players develop and actually be ready for the NHL and not be thrown into it out of necessity.
So 24. So this is where my brain goes on this. They played 32 games. They got 50 left. They have 24 points. If they go 35-15, right? Like 35-15, which would be a fantastic final 3 months of the season. From like a fun standpoint, the fans will have fun. The fans get to enjoy that. Kids get to go to the games and see wins. Fans get to celebrate more nights than not. And Josh says it might be a little too little too late, but learning to win as a group is important for the future. The bulk of this group will be around for a while, so progress on the ice is important. I agree. I also understand. So if you do the math and you go 35-15, that still puts you at 94 points. That is not getting into the postseason. So I understand. I'm not saying that that's not what I want. I would want that. If I'm a fan, I'm paying, especially if I'm a season ticket holder, if I'm going to invest my time and watch the games all the time, no matter where I'm at in the country, I want to see something entertaining. I want to see something fun. And I agree to your point and to Josh's point about long-term advantages and benefits to winning. But
and it also, like, Barry Trotz has said this, that he is not, the plan is still, as a general manager, it's his job to look in like multi-year chunks. He's not just looking at this season. So no matter what happens this season, the plan is still the plan, to build for the future and make upgrades for the future. Yeah. All that was going to change was the timeline for that plan. And so the plan itself isn't going to change. It's just how quickly are we going to start this process?
I understand, and I agree with you. I understand if a fan says, man, we could go 35-15, not make the playoffs, and all we've done is move to the 15th pick in the draft again. And so I understand when someone says, like, hey, I would much rather be a top 5. I'm willing to lose. I'd much rather have a lottery at the first pick than go from like picking 7th to picking 15th. And that's all we accomplished with all the winning. I agree there's more long-term stuff, especially for the young players. I don't think that applies to Steven Stamkos, Marchessault, Josi, Forsberg. I don't think learning how to win is something that they benefit greatly from at this point in their careers. They know how to be professionals. I do think there's lots of young people on the team that deserve it, and so that need it. And if that's going to be a part of this, which we're going to get to in a second, especially on the defense, if they're going to go young, which they have some nice pieces on that end of the ice right now, then I understand wanting to win. So I basically what I'm getting at, Emma, is I understand sort of everyone's perspective on this. And if you're coming at it with like, man, I'm really excited to watch good hockey again, I get that. And I'm on board. If you're saying, man, I really want a high number 1 pick in the draft and I want us to have a chance to really get a game-changing forward for the first time in franchise history, I understand that too. And I kind of understand everything in between, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And I think that I would just say to anyone who is of that belief that, it's better to just tank and get, a shot at the number 1 pick, I would say prepare yourself for disappointment, because this team, this leadership, this front office, these players are not going to be on board with that strategy. So,
and it's not, so like in the NFL, no one intentionally does that.
I know, but like still, I mean,
But you trade away,
right.
you trade away Matthias Ekholm, you trade away Tanner Jeannot, you trade away Nito Niederreiter, you trade away pieces that then, make it much harder to win games. So in this case, it would be maybe it's Nyquist. There's a hand, maybe it's Lozon and Carrier. Like there's names you could move that would probably make your team quote unquote worse. And you're not intentionally tanking. You're just playing for the long term. So I don't know. It's interesting. I get it. I think part of the problem, the frustration, Emma, is that we are in this nebulous in between area. And I think to your point, Barry Trotz has the plan in his head, but it's not going according to that yet. It hasn't. Yeah. And I think that's where we're all sitting here going like, well, what is it? What is it? What are you going to change? Are you going to knee jerk react? Are you not? That was part of my column on Monday. It's like, we've got to decide what we want to be as a city and as a market and as a group of fans and as an organization, as a collective. They need to decide, are we going to be cutthroat, cynical, big time hockey and react? Or are we going to be the old Preds and sort of stay the course and be patient and invest time in trying to get better? I don't know that either way guarantees you anything.
Yeah.
So
I think that this market is not, I mean, they, again, Sean Henry will probably come and, cut my head off for saying this, but this is not a hockey market. It's not a traditional hockey market. And as much as they want to believe that they are, that they have made this town into a hockey town, it's not, traditionally speaking. I'm not saying that, the fans aren't legitimate or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's an entertainment town that has a hockey team. And now with this new general manager and new ownership coming in, this could be, to your point, an opportunity to sort of change that narrative if the fans are on board with that. And so I just think it's going to take a lot longer than people think.
What's interesting, and I've talked to Sean about this a number of times, he's actually the opposite. He appreciates and leans into the non-traditional element. Like the key to every good branding opportunity is to be authentic, right? To who you are. And I think Sean has done a brilliant job of saying, we're not going to swim against the stream here on this. We're not going to brand ourselves a Canadian Original Six hockey market. Like that's not what he does. He doesn't think that. And he leans in heavily to, we're a non-traditional Sunbelt hockey market that's an entertainment town that people have a certain energy and vibe about. We're the city that, again, I wrote this in the column, we're the city that will see Nicole Kidman out at a restaurant and leave her alone because we're just a little chiller than the other places. And that's partly what I was writing about, is like, do we want to maintain that identity and who we are? And I think Sean wants both, and that's hard to do. He wants to win a Stanley Cup championship because he's tasted it before in Tampa, but he also wants to be authentic to who we are as a city. And that's hard to do. And the last couple of years, Barry Trotz's decisions have sort of sent a different signal about the direction this franchise is thinking it should go. You spend $100 million unprecedentedly on one day. That's sending a different signal about who you are and how you're functioning and how you're acting. And now it feels like, oh no, we're going to be patient with Brunette and we're going to let the young kids develop. It's like, oh, now we're going to fall back into because that thing didn't work right away. Now we're going to fall back. And so it feels like they're waffling.
It didn't work immediately. That doesn't mean it didn't work. Right.
No, I agree. I said right away.
I know, but that was less directed at you and more directed at all the many fans who are like, oh, it didn't work. Scrap it. Start over. It's like, just give him a minute. Like, it doesn't mean give him years, but like, give him a freaking minute. Like, it hasn't been that long.
You have been around sports and the internet for long enough to know, that's not how they act and function on the internet. It's not short for logical or rational. Fan is short for fanatic. It's not short for like patient. You know what I mean?
And see, I'm not a patient person either. And so I'm not patient with people who are being impatient. And it just creates a whole vicious cycle there.
Ben says, what question? Can you have it both ways? If not, or if no, why not? I think that's that's an interesting question. And I certainly thought about it a lot when I was writing my column, but I think there is. So I'm a college football nerd, and that's how I kind of compare everything to. I even compared, do you want to act like Auburn? I would compare this to like Toronto and New York and Boston and these markets compared to sort of like, I don't know, like Carolina, Nashville, San Jose. Like there's every market has a personality. Every market has an identity. And like Georgia, for example, football versus Auburn football, they behave differently. Georgia is far more relaxed and chill, and like just they've been trained to sort of the cruise ship moves slowly, right? When they change strategies, they're moving a big, large, giant cruise ship, and it turns a little slower than a little Auburn speedboat. And the speedboat can go fast, but you run out of gas fast, and you might be stuck in the middle of the ocean for a while. So now I'm doing like 3 metaphors at once, but it's like, do you want to? Nashville's more Georgia. We are more chill about this stuff. We're more relaxed. We're here to have a good time. We're not like, that's just how Nashville is always been. And I think that's why it's hard to marry being cutthroat and cynical and big business and diehard hockey place where you act like an intense, insane fan base when that's not really necessarily who we are. And that's sort of the point of my column is what are we? What do we want to be? And right now, I do think we're kind of straddling the line on this, and I don't know where we're going to end up. I think patience is going to be the thing that they do. I don't know how many fans are going to love that. Maybe the casuals do, Emma. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, the casuals, frankly, don't care because, again, it is it's an entertainment town with a hockey team. They're going to sell tickets no matter what. People are going to come to the games no matter what. People aren't going to come en masse and boo the team if they're doing horribly, because this is a town that, now I'm not saying that the fans aren't passionate, but they're more passionate when good things happen than they are when bad things happen at the games. I mean, the fans in attendance at the games are going to be, that's why it's so hard to play here during the playoffs, because, fans are riled up. If things are going poorly, they don't get mad. They just are quiet. So I think that, and that's the casual fan. That's the casual.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
I'm not saying in general, but I think, you brought up a good point. You brought up Tampa. And I think that is actually a great example of what Nashville could be. That Tampa is no one's going to argue that Tampa is a hockey town, but like that they kind of did the same thing. They built their arena in downtown Tampa. People are going to come to games no matter what. And they were able to build this kind of legacy and this, dynasty for back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. And I think that, though, the difference is that people forget, like, yes, they remember that time of, Tampa being dominant and winning the back-to-back cups, but people forget that was not immediate either. Like, Tampa sucked for a while, and like they had to get to that point. And so it's a little bit of apples and oranges, because Tampa didn't go out one off season and sign and spend $100 million in one day like Nashville did. So I think that's why everyone's like, oh my God, we spent this money. Instant gratification. I want to see it now. And like, that's just not realistic, I think. And so that's why I look at Tampa sort of as a model, that they're not a traditional market, but they can be hardcore. They can't, I mean, look at what, they asked Ryan McDonough to waive his no trade clause so they could send him to Nashville. Like,
I was going to say, if only the Predators could get players like Steven Stamkos and Ryan McDonough, they could be like Tampa.
But I mean, like, they can, be cutthroat, and they can do the hard shit. I mean, they went out and got Gensel and let Stamkos walk. So I'm just saying that, like, Nashville I think you can be both, but I mean, and people aren't going to like to hear this, but you need to be patient to get to that point of being both. It's a hard balance to strike, and it doesn't come immediately.
I don't know if you can be both. I don't think you can be cutthroat. I think you can try to win a championship and also stay true to your identity. I think that's what makes it hard to explain to folks when you say, "Oh no, be okay with losing." It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying just don't be insane.
Yeah,
that's just what I'm getting at. And Ben says it very well. I think you can be hardcore and still have patience, because at the end of the day, I'm not a GM, and I trust GM Barry Trotz more than I trust my own judgment. I think that's a very mature, self-aware approach, Ben, and I don't think that's how fans of any sport truly act on the whole.
I wish more fans were like Ben.
And Josh says I'm with Ben on that. I respect both of you for having that sort of ability. The one thing I can compare it to in my own life is my family. We go up to Green Bay Packers games. Me and my brother and my dad and my cousin and my uncle. We all go to Green Bay Packers games like once a year, maybe once every other year. It's like a journey to Mecca. It's very hard to get to Lambeau Field. You got to like fly into Milwaukee or Chicago and rent a car. Rarely are you flying in and out of Green Bay to Nashville. So it's kind of like this journey. And for the longest time, and this is me being in the media, Emma, for the longest time, like we would go and everyone else there on the trip, I would ruin their time because I'm like, I don't really care if they win the game. Like it's about spending time with my brother. It's about seeing my father. It's about seeing my cousin and my uncle and spending time with them and having beers and going to the steakhouse. And like, it's all about, I'm being like the cheesy dad, like it's all about this. It's all about the camaraderie.
You're just cats in the cradling these people.
But if you're going to invest the amount of time and money it takes to get from Nashville to Lambeau Field, which is not easy, if you're going to allow the score of a regular season NFL game to dictate whether or not you had a good time that weekend, I felt like that was so dumb. And so, like, to me, it's about the journey, not the outcome. And I know that's hopefully that's like super evolved of me. I don't know. But now they're coming around on it. Like my brother hadn't seen a win in like 6 trips to Lambeau. And he's like, dude, I got to see a win. And I'm like, I hear you. But like, it's so great to see you, man. Like,
love you too.
and then we won a game this past season. And it's like, okay, great. Now that's out of the window. But that's the comparison I'm trying to make in my head to Preds fans is, if you're going to spend all this time and money and invest this trip to Lambeau to see your family and to be there in the moment together, the outcome can't be the thing that makes you happy. Like you have to find the joy in the other areas and the other things that are going on. And to me, that's taking my daughter to a game. Like I'm going to try to go to the Kings game because it's at a time where my kids can actually stay awake for the game. And it's like, I don't care if they win that game or not. My daughters don't care if they win that game or not. I want them to have fun. And they're going to have a great time because they're watching the Preds play. I know that's not how fandom works. But do we want to be a little bit more like that and be more authentic, or do we want to be, again, the Predators have done some of this on their own, Emma, by pricing a lot of those fans out of the building. That is not a small part of this. When you start jacking up prices and driving prices up, fans then have a right to turn back around and say, I demand excellence. And that's one of the main criteria that is sort of driving, I think, some of the angst right now, if we're being honest.
And in fairness, that's not just the Predators either. That's kind of a league-wide thing, a sports-wide thing that's happening. It's becoming, less affordable to be able to go to games. But
I think that's a direct correlation, right?
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying the Predators are not the only ones doing that.
I hear you. A lot more quarter zips in the lower bowl, a lot fewer hoodies. That's all I'm saying. And a lot of people complaining about ticket prices. That is for sure. Okay. All right. Let's hear from enough about that. Here was Luke Shen, who had 6 shots in 3 seconds. That's almost 2 shots a second is hard to do for a man of his speed and caliber. So here was Luke Shen after the game in the locker room. This is, of course, courtesy of Emma Lingan.
I mean, it led to a nice scrum, and the boys got in the mix, and Deli dropped the mitts there and got a nice scrap. So kind of seemed to energize the guys there, and everyone was sticking up for each other.
How did this one feel? I know you guys have felt a little bit better the last couple, but to get this one in the fashion that you got it at home, how satisfying is this? Yeah, it felt good. I mean, obviously the wins have been, a real challenge for us and hard to come by, and felt the last couple of our games getting better and trending in the right direction, but, last game in particular, the results weren't there, so it was nice to get rewarded tonight, and obviously some great saves from Juice, and, unbelievable first goal by Willsby there. I mean, I don't even know how you could dream of having a better goal than that. That was pretty special and pretty elite, skating up on the blue line there. He was dancing and picked the corner. So all in all, it was a good team effort tonight, and everyone bought in.
Just what about the job you guys, you're banged up on the blue line right now, the job you guys have done to come in here and play so well defensively without some key guys on the back end?
Yeah, guys have played real well for us. I mean, it's kind of been next man up, and, obviously everyone's done a job sort of by committee there, and guys are, logging some more minutes maybe than they're used to and putting in some different situations, whether it's, matchups or special teams or whatever it is. And, everyone's done a nice job, and, it's not perfect by any means, but, we're just trying to keep it simple and defend hard and get into our forwards' hands as quick as possible and try to deliver some pucks on that.
Thank you, Luke.
There you go. Defensive effort, Emma, was the thing that stood out to me on Tuesday evening, and UC Saros, we'll get to him in a second as well. But yeah, a lot of young talent on the defense. Can you rattle off the starting lineup on the defense? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Can you do it?
I can. You mean like the defensive pairings?
Yeah. Can you do it?
Yeah. Shea, Blankenberg, Delgado, Shen, Willsby, Gravel.
There you go. Just like we all drew it up in the preseason.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think so. Yeah, it was a great defensive effort. Wouldn't say it was a 100% great showing by the team in the first period. I would say really like the first 10 minutes of the first period, they spent a lot of time in their zone, and that's great. You know, they protected the house very well. Would have been nice if they had, cleared the puck once or twice, but while they were in the zone, they did a very good job. There was a lot of, I didn't keep track, but there was a lot of like full body saves. They're like the dramatic, like laying out saves, like Luke Shen had one, and like full body blocks too. It wasn't just like, oh, let me turn my body a little bit and hope the puck bounces off me. It was like, no, I'm going to put my life on the line and, stop this puck with my entire body. So like all of those guys did that. And then I think, talking to Andrew Brunette after the game, he talked about specifically the guys who had come up from Milwaukee at various points so far during the year. So Gravel, Willsby, Blankenberg, and Delgado. And he talked about how they each kind of bring their own unique element. They bring their own style and their own, positive influence to the game. So like Blankenberg is, Brunette didn't say this, I'm saying this, like Blankenberg is a fecal agitator, big time. Like he can get in and he can, not in like necessarily a scrappy, like get under their skin kind of way, but more in like he will do whatever he can to disrupt the play. He will hunt pucks like there is no tomorrow. And that's exactly what Andrew Brunette wants to see. And then you got Delgado and Willsby, who both have good speed. They're good on their feet. And they have that mobility that maybe some of the bigger guys, bigger or older guys don't have. And then you've got Gravel, who is one of those bigger, older guys, but he is, he's got a lot of length to him. And he's, so he can be good with the blocking shots and, more of a stay-at-home defenseman. And even Willsby, I mean, believe it or not, because that goal that he scored, chef's kiss, that was beautiful. That was a Roman Josi type goal. Adam Willsby, you would never guess this to watch that goal, but he is not known for being an offensive defenseman. Like that is not his game usually, but that was a Roman Josi type goal that he scored. And I think that, each of these guys brings their own thing, their own element to the game. I think, again, I bring up Blankenberg. He hasn't gotten a lot of, press, I guess, just because, he's not scoring goals and things like that. But he is one that I have been consistently impressed with in the way that he plays the game and the way that he fits so well into this Andrew Brunette system. Willsby, I think, we saw Fedor Svechkov go back to Milwaukee Tuesday morning, which I think was always the plan for him. I don't think it's a sign of anything bad. I think it's just, that was always the plan. Get him a taste and see what you got. I don't see Adam Willsby going back to Milwaukee, quite frankly. The way that he's played, like, honestly, I would keep him in the lineup over.
So I'm going back while you're talking. I'm going back with. So I think Shen.
While I'm talking, you're not listening.
No, I'm listening because I want to talk about Willsby and Blankenberg is fascinating. Backstory. His backstory is super fascinating. I to your point, because I was listening. To your point, I think, and Shane said this in the Lower Broad Hockey chat about Lauzon and Carrier being more expendable because of what we're seeing with these other pieces, that they were clearly better. Now I want to clear my throat a little bit on this and be like, it was the Rangers and they are in a free fall. So I want to make sure we're aware of that too, that this is the way it is. But they were great against Dallas on defense as well. So
the Rangers also did not go quietly. The last 5 minutes of that game last night, I mean, they were applying tons of pressure. And
no, they're professional hockey players that get paid millions of dollars as well, and they were the President's Trophy team last year. Luke, but what's ironic and what I was going to get to is with Willsby being up potentially permanently, who knows? You got Stasny, of course, getting closer, whatever that might mean. That Luke Schenn is the one that's going to keep his job through all of this, where we could be making changes to McDonough, he's out. You're making changes potentially to Fabro's gone, he's out. Your Carrier's absolutely been dangled on a trading block for sure. I think Lausanne is more. I think he's, because Blankenberg and Wilsby and these guys are smaller. I think having a Lausanne and a Schenn, with those big bodies that don't mind hitting people around, I think they're probably going to keep him. But it does make them trade chips potentially if you're looking to make a move, which we'll get to in a second as well. But Luke Schenn with 7 shots. I've only gone back to 2017, Emma, because I can't get back any further. He had 5 shot attempts in 2022 in a game. He had 5 shot attempts in 2020 in a game, and he had 5 shot attempts in 2017 in a game. 7 yesterday. I have not found if this is officially his career high, but I have not found a game that he has played. He has played 3 games in the last 6 years where he had 5 shots, more than 4, and he had 7. So
it is indeed a career high. Confirmed that with NHL PR last night. But he just, oh my gosh, like he just stood in front of the net and just whacked at the puck. That's how you get 6 shots on goal, 6 backhand shots on goal in 3 seconds. And he just stood there and whacked it. I don't even know. I think actually, I do know. He had one other shot. I want to say it was in the first period from the high slot, and it was about as, it was very Schenny. It was a very Schenny shot. Very slow.
Still 0 for 7, but still got 7 shots.
Hey, he was trying.
Well, let's hear from Wilsby, because I want to continue this conversation about the defense. Here was Adam Wilsby after the game. All smiles, of course, in the locker room.
I felt great, just with the crowd and everything. It was just great feeling.
For you guys as a group to come home, I know you were pretty pleased with the last couple of games, but to come home to win in this fashion, what impresses you most about this one tonight?
Yeah, it was just tough loss in Colorado. I feel like we played really well there, so it was really nice to get another win here, and hopefully we can use this homestand now to get some energy. So it felt really good.
Obviously, the goal was a big moment, but everyone played really well defensively tonight. What do you think about your team's defensive effort this evening?
We were just playing as a 5. I feel like we were always having forwards were back checking hard, and this killed their zone entries. So it was just an overall great game.
If you guys need Jonathan, he's over here also.
What did you see specifically on your goal that led to kind of pick up a loose puck?
Listen, I will back you up now, but I saw the forward coming up against me, and I felt I had the speed to get around him, and then I just shot my ass and shot.
A little bit of a celebration on the goal there, and then Philip got the puck for you. Obviously, that was pretty nice, right?
Yeah, it was nice. I just tried to do a good sally, so it felt good.
Did you like hearing the crowd cheer when it was announced it was your first NHL goal?
Yeah, it was cool. Both when I scored and then when they announced it as well was really cool.
Adam, what's your transition to the NHL so seamless over these last couple of weeks?
I don't know. It's great. It's a great school down in Milwaukee. Like we have a great team 2 years in a row there, so it's great. Yeah, I don't know. It feels pretty seamless. So just trying to keep it going here.
All right, a man of many words, Adam Wilsby, obviously young player, kind of learning how to do the whole NHL thing, but do love seeing how many guys, Svechkov, LaRue, Wilsby, how many guys are going to score their first NHL goal in this team that's supposed to be so old?
Yeah.
It's been a lot of it's always fun to see those guys celebrate, and then to watch the other players celebrate with them is one of the cooler parts. They go back to the bench and they're like, they can't hide it, like if Svechkov couldn't hide it, LaRue couldn't hide it. You're floating on cloud 9. You worked your butt off for so many years to get there. So Wilsby's got a chance. Like, this is a guy who 2020 draft, 4th round pick. He's not a young player. Like he's spent his time coming up. And so the speed with which that crew plays, and I'm willing to bet you Stasny kind of fits into the same mold, right? Like the pace with which those young guys all play, and the hunger is clear. Like Wilsby's at +5. Like there's nobody on the team at +5 right now. And so I don't know. I'm curious what this defense core looks like, let's say in a month.
Yeah.
I am fascinated to see what it looks like when Stasny's eligible and available and ready to go. Maybe they make a move to trade somebody away. How many of these young guys stick? Blankenberg's story, if you don't know it, Nick Keyser was telling me about it. Like, this is a guy who played, just got out of high school, didn't have any offers to play, and he just decides to stick around in a gym with a coach, and he gets an offer to play in college, and he's a forward and basically played defense because no one else would, and all of a sudden he's in the NHL, and it's a great story. And so I'm fascinated to see where this group goes. They played very well on Tuesday. They played well against Dallas. Helps to have a goaltender like UC Saros behind you, but what does this 6-man rotation look like in a month is a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, of course you miss Yossi. That's a no-brainer. But are they really missing Lausanne and Carrier that much right now? Like, to be honest, I think they, we kind of thought they were expendable already. I think now they are even more expendable. Not saying, oh, they're dead weight, get rid of them. But I just think that, things are looking good. Things are looking good, down the depth chart on defense.
Josh asks the important questions here, which is in the locker room, Emma, can you report what his official nickname is? Because Willsby already sounds like a nickname, which it does. It has the Y. It has the S. It's very short. It's very hockey nickname.
It is, but he goes by Willie.
Hockey players. Kevin, I'm not going to answer that question. Let's see here. Go Dog says, I was at the game last night, and I know we shouldn't get too excited too prematurely, but it just, dare I say, felt different last night. It feels like there might be some momentum to build on now. Now, here's the deal. You've got Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Carolina. You got 4 games at home in a row. If you can win these games and go into Christmas break, you got time with your family, downtime to think about what's going on and to feel confident about what could be like a 7-game stretch, give or take, heading into a break. And so before you then go on the road, I think for 6, right, against really good teams, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Vancouver. So you got to get right before Christmas. And there's a chance now to do that at home and to do it without, if you can survive this moment without Roman Josi, it speaks to a lot about where this team could head. And I don't know, you want to see them. Ultimately, I think you keep Lausanne and trade Carrier. I think that's where I'm at.
I think you can get more for Carrier in a trade. So I agree.
Okay.
They
all right.
can't really afford to, like, we talk about Blankenberg and Wilsby, and like they're great, but those are not like the big, bulky defensemen that Lausanne is. So I mean, there is something to be said for size and physicality there. So
I mean, if they go on a run here and they're playing really good hockey, and we get to February and they've made a move on Carrier, are you sitting there talking Shea, Josi, Lausanne, Shen, Wilsby, Stastny? Is that the 6 that you want to see? Is it Blankenberg over Stastny? What's the 6 you want to see?
I am more, quite honestly, I'm tempted to put either Blankenberg or Del Gaizo in over Stastny.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention Del Gaizo.
Because I mentioned they both have, and not saying that obviously Stastny, that's his thing, right? Is he can skate. He can really just skate circles around these guys. And that's great. But I feel like he is not quite the puck hunter that Blankenberg is and that Del Gaizo is. And I think that he is less inclined to join in on the rush than Del Gaizo is. I think Blankenberg is, I don't know what the word is. He's very like
fecal agitator.
No, I mean, yes, but that's not where I was going with this. I mean that he's very slippery, I guess. Like it's like he can, for a little guy, he knows, like, he can see when the hit's coming and he gets out of the way. Kind of like Tommy Novak when Andrew Brunette was talking about Tommy Novak during training camp being slippery. Like, he just gets out of the way right at the right time. So I think he's quick, and that goes into the mobility piece. But I think that it's, they both, it's a good problem to have, honestly. But I think if you're looking for the most offensive upside, and I don't just, by offense, I don't necessarily just mean scoring goals. I just mean creating chances and joining in on the rush. I go with Del Gaizo or Blankenberg.
Well, to say that they have a lot more options than we expected at the beginning of the season. Absolutely. Yeah, Patrick says Bruno. Brando, is that meant to be Bruno? Said it. He has a sixth sense. I think that's the offensive background. I really do. I think his offensive background is how to avoid hits and move around and skate through traffic and handle the puck. Like, that's his background. And so I think that's absolutely what you see. No, they've got more options than I ever expected. That is for sure. Now, does that make them championship options? I don't know. But does it mean they could be really good next year? All you need is like 2 of the 4 to like elevate into starters. You don't need all 4 of them to be good. You just need like 1 or 2 of them to be very good. So there you go. Should be a lot of fun, though, to watch those guys develop. And they got 4 games here to get to the Christmas break, and they need to play well in all 4 of them. We'll get to the Dylan Cousins story from Buffalo and the trade rumors that were floating around. But I do want to say, like, there's probably a longer episode about this, maybe during the break, about the Barry Trotz decision-making spectrum, like the matrix, like looking at all the decisions that he's made so far. I think for the most part, Emma, and this is where I need receipts from folks, almost everybody applauded or approved of almost everything he's done so far. A lot of them have not worked, and that's okay to then in hindsight say, hey, that didn't work out. But I haven't seen anybody say, no, we shouldn't have signed Stamkos, like, at the beginning. Now, I think you might have said that to me on a podcast, like, I don't think we should go after him or something like that. And that counts. But the one thing you cannot really argue about, and I know there's a lot of consternation about Yaroslav Askarov, but I was looking at Shesterkin last night, of course, for the Rangers with an 8-year, $92 million contract. And one of the points that I think you made and that I made and that everybody made is that they got out in front of the Saros contract because the market was going to change immediately thereafter. And it has done so in a big way. UC Saros is $30 million cheaper than the New York Rangers goaltender, and he is about the same age. I would argue, I'm fine with saying that the other guy's a little bit better than UC Saros. I'm okay with that. Is he $32 million better than UC Saros? Absolutely not. And so in that sense, one of the only moves that we can definitively say was still a spectacular move for now was the UC Saros contract. No question about it.
100%. And I will fight anyone who says otherwise. And believe me, there are a lot of people who say otherwise. We should have kept Askarov. To me, I've said this before, so I'm not going to totally rehash it. But I think, to me, going and getting Justus Annunen, what should make people feel a hell of a lot better about the whole Askarov situation. I agree the optics weren't great, where you essentially, this is not directly what happened, but essentially traded a top goalie prospect for a 32-year-old journeyman backup in Scott Wedgwood that you're going to have for 2 years. I agree, optics not great there, but I think that Barry Trotz, again, I said this before, those are the kinds of moves. Going and trading Wedgwood for Annunen, it sounds like, all right, it's a backup goalie swap, who cares? Those are the trades that GMs are paid to make. Like, those are the difference-making trades. So again, the optics at the beginning with the whole Askarov situation weren't good, and I'm not going to sit here and argue that they were, but he went and followed up. It just took a little bit longer, but he went out and got a very promising young prospect who fits well in this system, who their scouts had been eyeing for a while, who he had actually tried to get last year and didn't, and fits much better into the timeline here with what Nashville is trying to do. And so I think that, again, the Saros was always going to be the move. Extending Saros, always going to be the move. And the reason that they didn't come out and say it from the very beginning was because, of course, you gotta test the waters. You gotta float the test balloon and see, all right, what is this guy worth on the market? What do people think he's worth? But that it was always the plan to re-sign him. He gave him the hometown discount, and now they have this elite. Yes, UC Saros is an elite goaltender locked up for the next 8 years. And so I think that I understand why people are upset about losing Askarov, but realistically speaking, when you had, like, I understand it's not fun to lose, talent like that. But I think that as long as Saros was here, he was never going to have an opportunity, whether the backup was Scott Wedgwood or Kevin Lincoln or whoever. Like, I still think that was not Askarov's place. And I think that he just didn't fit the timeline. And, hey, the Preds got a first round pick out of it. And they got, they ended up eventually getting the young backup goalie who can develop in their system. And potentially this could turn into a Pekka UC thing down the road. And I think, and of course he's Finnish. So, they like to keep it in the family. But I just think that, back to your original point, Saros is the linchpin to this whole thing working. This whole we want to try to win now thing. Whether that, you can argue about, like not Askarov, but you can argue about Stamkos or Shea or Marchessault or whoever, like not performing, that's fine. But Saros was going to be the linchpin to this whole thing. That contract was what set this entire offseason in motion. People talk about the Stamkos contract, Marchessault contract. Lest we forget that Saros started this whole thing.
And if they don't sign him, they're not doing any of that other stuff.
No,
because then they're in full rebuild mode, even if it's Lincoln. Just for the sake of conversation, I pulled up the 25-26 contract rankings. Shesterkin 11.5, Carey Price 10.5, Bobrovsky 10. Although some older names in here and some injured names in here. Vasilevsky 9.5, Hellebuyck 8.5, Sorokin 8.25, Swayman 8.25, Olmark 8.25. You got to get to 9th place to get to 7.7 and UC Saros. So already before the contract has even kicked in, he's barely a top 10. He's barely a top 10 highest paid goaltender in the NHL.
He's still only making $5 million a year right now. So that's an insane bargain. But again, I think that he gets disrespected a lot just in general around the league because he plays for he hasn't won a Stanley Cup and he hasn't had playoff success, which is valid.
You got to have playoff success. No, I agree.
You do. It's valid. But I'm saying that's why partly why they were able to get him at that dollar amount, because, you looking at a guy like Shesterkin, for example, you've got playoff success. You don't have a Stanley Cup, but you have playoff success. You have a Vezina trophy. You have all of those things working in your favor that Saros doesn't have, but that's not saying he doesn't deserve them. But it's just the facts of it.
Brando, I could care less about Askarov. I couldn't care less, but let's not be picky about this. Thank you. I agree with you, Brando. So again, I'm going to get to this other trade that there was rumors about this week. We got to finish with that. But Sinkers Beverages, of course, the hat right there. Sinkers Beverages, they got good gear. My wife, on Tuesdays, you can go in and get 10% off all wine and champagne. Good for you to know, Emma. On Tuesdays. And my wife goes in, she buys a gift for all of her team at her company that she works for. We had tried out some champagne bottles. My guy Grant over there, huge Preds fan, huge hockey guy. He tells me, here are the 3 different ones you guys should try, test them out, see what you like over the weekend. Come back on Tuesday, and we'll get you a bunch of these for gifts, for Christmas gifts. It's less than $30. We found a really delicious, awesome bottle of champagne that my parents loved over the weekend, that my wife loves, that I like. It's delicious. It's not super expensive, and we're going to go buy like 12 of them. Get the 10% off on Tuesday and give them as Christmas gifts to all the people on her team. So great place to go pick up some quick holiday stocking stuffers or in-law gifts or work gifts. Make sure you swing by Sinkers Beverages, of course, in East Nashville, almost 40 years of serving the community. So make sure you check them out. Sinkers Beverages, championship liquor store, 4 years in a row in Nashville. Their sister store, Bluegrass Beverages, is up at Hendersonville. So if you're in the area on the north side of town, make sure you check out Bluegrass Beverages. They've been serving that community for over 50 years. And, of course, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the best brisket in the city. Tony's Magic Green Beans, open from 11 to 3 on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they're not open on Monday and Tuesday. That it's just until the meat is gone. So go get some breakfast, go get some lunch and hang out and tell Shotgun Willie, tell Pitmaster Bill we said hello. He does great work up there. We do appreciate him. One of the best Thanksgiving meals I've ever had. And then I had like 9 turkey sandwiches after that because the turkey breast was an Adam Wilsby goal type of turkey breast is what it was. All right. So this trade, walk us through what's happening with this $7 million 23-year-old center who was born in 2001, which pissed me off when I looked him up. I was like, damn, I graduated high school before you were born. That's really offensive to me. But $7.1 million, 30-goal season when he was pretty young for Buffalo. Walk us through the trade machinations that are taking place right now.
Well, as bad as anyone feels that things may have been in Nashville, and they have been bad, they have been worse in Buffalo. The Sabres have now lost, I believe it's 11 games in a row. This was a team that,
still has a better record than Nashville.
Yes, but this was a team that by this point in their development timeline was supposed to be competitive by now, and they're not. How Kevin Adams still has a job, I am not entirely sure. That could be changing here soon.
At time of taping, he is employed, yes.
At time of taping, he is still employed. There's news broke that the team owner went on the trip with them to Montreal, where they proceeded to lose 6-1. I think Frank Cervelli came out and said, "Oh, he went and just like professed his faith in the locker room and in that group." And I'm like, that's not why owners go on trips, my guy. That's not no. And so, at time of taping, still employed. But this is something where for years, like the last couple of years, Kevin Adams has come up in rumors as like, this is a big year for him. Otherwise, something is going to change. They've now lost 11 in a row. They got shit kicked by the Canadiens. They made the Canadiens look like
a good hockey team.
Yeah. I mean, granted, so did the Predators, but I think, that was a different time. That was
that was so last week.
So now, I guess Adams has kind of floated out there, clearly they need the big shakeup. They need to do something here, kind of like what the Rangers did with Jacob Trouba. And although that had been going on for a while, but just like, all right, this clearly isn't working. Let's get out and, try to do a big shakeup. So Dylan Cousins, their former first round pick from 2019, number 7 overall. He's a 23-year-old center by tradition, but he has been playing on the wing with Buffalo. He signed a contract extension with Buffalo that'll keep him there until the 2029-2030 season, at which point he'll be 29 years old, which is still not that old. And so
very young.
And so the issue here is the price. But, Kevin Adams has essentially put him out on the trade block because he knows something needs to change with this Buffalo team. And Cousins is the kind of asset that will net you a really strong return. So it's not that Cousins has been the problem for them. It's just like, this is our best trade asset right now. And so he has made him available. Unsurprisingly, sources have confirmed that Barry Trotz has been on the phone, because Barry Trotz, I think, calls
a 23-year-old center is available.
Yeah.
Barry Trotz is on the phone.
Barry Trotz was on the phone yesterday. Like immediately. Now, of course, the Predators don't have the cap space to add $7.1 million. And so that would involve, plus I think Buffalo is looking to, if they are going to make a trade, they're not looking for prospects. They're not looking for draft picks. They have a lot of that already. They are looking for NHL players. And so that would actually help Nashville. That would benefit, because if you got rid of 1 or 2 pieces of your NHL roster, that clears some cap space for you to bring in Cousins. So
if they don't want, we'll go through the names.
Okay.
Before we get to the fact that it might not happen.
Right. It might not happen because again, the sources have confirmed that there have been, very deep conversations between Barry Trotz and Kevin Adams about a trade for Dylan Cousins. I have heard Tommy Novak's name being involved in those rumors. That would give you the cap space. It could also be something that, he's the kind of player that Buffalo would be interested in. I would say like a Novak, a Parsonen.
Novak and Carrier gives you $6 million, and that's 2 NHL ready players that Buffalo could put in their lineup right now.
Yeah. Parsonen could go in their lineup right now. I know he's not going to clear as much cap space, but still, he's a change of scenery guy, much like Phil Tomasino or Cody Glass or any of those guys who could make an immediate impact in Buffalo.
I feel like there needs to be space for Svechkov, which is a weird thing to say.
There does,
but I think
again,
that's why I'm like, if you're going to give Parsonen up, I think that's okay. Like, I don't have a problem with Parsonen and Novak because that gives Svechkov an opportunity. Now, I will say to the Novak conversation, one of the only lines that has finally stabilized through 32 games of last place hockey is Jankowski, Novak, and Evangelista. It's one of the only ones that we know that they can run out there almost every night now. And you're going to get what you get in the third line. So productive, solid, fast, skilled.
I think as far as leaving space for Svechkov, like you said, this was not supposed to be his year to make an immediate impact. So I think you look at, again, you have O'Reilly, you have Stamkos. Those aren't your long-term solutions at center. In a couple years, they'll be gone. And then who do you have? Again, Novak, who I think we can agree is expendable and doesn't have any sort of limitations on his contract as far as trades or moves. And then on the fourth line, you've got Colton Sissons, Michael McCarron, those. Right. Yeah. So I'm less concerned about that. My concern about a potential trade that may or may not even happen for Dylan Cozens is that it's a lot of money for a relatively unproven asset. Mm-hmm. And by unproven, I mean, look, he's 2 years removed from like a 31 goal season. Great. That's great. But I think last year he had 18 goals. And again, young
player, bad environment,
Yeah, I'll fully admit I have not spent a lot of time watching him play. So I don't know how much of it is the environment, the team around him, etc. But I just think that $7.1 million for the next 5-6 years, however long you're going to keep him around, is a very large investment for an unproven player.
He would be the fourth highest paid player on the team, right?
Yeah. Well, and plus,
Yossi, Forsberg, Stamkos, him. That's what it would be. That's the order.
Yeah,
because he'd be ahead of Shea and behind Saros for now. Next year,
he would be barely ahead of Shea. Yeah, but I think that he would again. Barry Trotz has shown over time that the only guys that he's willing to shell out money like that for are veterans. Guys who are proven with proven track records. Now there is the possibility of Buffalo retaining salary. But that would be
a lot of salary over a lot of years.
It's a lot of years for that. And I imagine, Buffalo is not going to want to do that. Of course, they're not going to want to do that. It's a former first round pick and they're trying to rebuild their team essentially. If they do trade him, that kind of signals, all right, we're in full teardown. I just think that, I don't know. I mean, I like the player. I like the on paper fit for Nashville. I don't like the price tag.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like Tage Thompson is making basically the same amount of money, and I would say he's a better player, but I don't, so what's interesting?
But he's also Tage Thompson is more of a proven asset over a longer period of time. So,
but if you do, the only reason I brought up Svechkov is if I was thinking through like bottom four forwards plus the bench scratches, you're like, who do you want? Like my point is I think Parsonen is expendable as well because that does free up space for a player like Svechkov, just in general. But Novak, Carrier, and Parsonen would be about $7 million ballpark, and that's your money. So now, do you sweeten the pot with a prospect or with a draft pick? I think it's worth a shot. What's interesting is that Stamkos playing center on the top line is sort of. I don't know if it's changed the calculus or not, because to your point, he does look faster and younger. He does look like he's productive in that line with Forsberg and Marchessault. And it looks like, you're going to have O'Reilly playing second line center, which is where he's very well suited to play. Maybe you don't need to mortgage the farm for a center right away where it's got this much term and this much AAV all at the same time. Maybe that's not the kind of piece you need, which is crazy to say, in general, but
the question is, do you think, and not you specifically, but in general, is the thought that Dylan Cozens is going to give you a better chance to win a championship than Tommy Novak? Because essentially that's who you're swapping it out for, whether Tommy Novak's part of the trade or not. Like essentially, if you get Dylan Cozens, that's saying we have moved on from Tommy Novak. So if you think that is the case, then it's definitely worth, it's worth exploring. Again, I would really feel a lot more comfortable with Nashville making a deal if Buffalo retains some salary. But it's a lot of salary over a lot of years. He just signed that contract extension last year. So it's, again, I like it. I think that, again, it just,
you better be sure. You better be sure on the player.
You better be sure.
Better be
and
sure
I am not sure on Dylan Cousins. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think that he would make this team worse, but
I do think the age for Ryan O'Reilly and the fact that Stamkos is a little bit better suited on the wing probably makes that conversation silly, that he's absolutely an upgrade on whoever else you've got, especially long term.
The way that he's been playing lately, I don't know that he's better suited for the wing.
Sure,
he was better suited for the wing in Tampa, but here.
I hear you. You still need answers longer term, not just this year or next year. You need answers longer term, and there's a chance in 2 years you have no number one center at all. And so, could Cousins be that player? Maybe. I agree with Brando. When I first saw the conversation that there's some, he said Cousins comes with some major Cody Glass vibes. I agree in that they were basically picked in the exact same spot in the draft. Cody Glass, when acquired, had scored 9 total career goals in less than 70 total career games. This is a guy who has a 30-goal season at age 21.
Yeah,
I agree with Brando's assessment. I also felt that way. This feels like kind of Cody Glassy, but I think I think they're very different career performances to date. If they were to go to get him right now, when they got Cody Glass, Cody Glass had not had more than 12 points in a season and was very much.
He had a lot of injuries and setbacks that Cousins has not. So that changed his trajectory a little bit. But yeah, again, I'm not totally down on Cousins. I'm like, nope, I don't like it. I am intrigued by Cousins, but I am not sure about Cousins for that amount of money.
If you're trying to trade Carrier away, and Parsonen hasn't really established a full-time role, and you think you can upgrade on Novak, this is a good piece to go try that with.
And
where we're at on that.
Young centers do not come available often.
Do you trust Andrew Burnett to develop a player? Go get a young star center, a talented center, I should say, maybe. So
yeah. So right. And again, it's good because when you bring Cousins in right now, if he joins the team tomorrow, you don't need him to be your first line center or your second line center. Right.
That's where
you need him on the third line, and and then he can eventually move his way up. They don't need that from him right now. So
finally, where the serial winning thing might actually help. Just learn from those veteran guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Lowerbroadhockey.com is the website. Make sure you check it out. Nick Keyser's going to be writing for us, putting up some stuff each week. So we're going to add some value for you guys there. So make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends about that. We've got a lot of stuff planned and coming for you on lowerbroadhockey.com featuring Emma and myself as well as Adam Vingan. You can get the Gold Standard Extra there every single Monday as well. You can get my ridiculous scribings. Also, you can get NHL weekly newsletter from Emma on Fridays. And now Nick's going to add some sort of color to the week, as it were. So make sure you check out lowerbroadhockey.com, Sinkers Beverages, as well as Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Emma, where can they all find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingan. I'm Emma Lingan on Blue Sky, but I have posted nothing, so I would not recommend going over there. It's too much. It's too much. So I'm sticking with this for now. And then you can find my work at the Hockey News, and as Braden mentioned, every Friday at Lower Broad Hockey.
There you go. Thank you all for listening. All you guys in the comments are wonderful. We do appreciate all you guys for hanging out. Make sure you go subscribe, lowerbroadhockey.com. I know most of you, Ben, Josh, you are. So thank you for your support. We do appreciate you guys. Still lots of stuff going on. So stay tuned. For Emma, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you guys next week.